I was terrified by an important Tuvok scene in Star Trek, Voyager, but it turned out okay in the end. Tim Russ's Star Trek Voyager character was always so consistently level-headed that it was unusual to see him act in any other way than as a traditionally placid Vulcan, which made the scene where Tuvok killed a fellow member of his ship's crew especially harrowing. Tuvok's Star Trek timeline takes him through several challenges, and many of them don't cause him to lose his composure in any notable way. However, one episode pushed Tuvok to his absolute limit, and it still makes me uneasy to watch the installment's most shocking scene. Tim Russ's Tuvok was one of the ever-present figures among the Star Trek Voyager cast. He appeared heavily in every season of Star Trek Voyager and routinely had entire episodes built around his character. Watching his dynamic with other members of the Voyager crew grow and change was one of the most fascinating aspects of Tuvok's character arc, but there was one figure in particular whom Tuvok often struggled to tolerate. Although a genuine friendship did eventually develop between them, Voyager proved in Season 2 just how strenuous their interactions could be for Tuvok. Tuvok killed Neelix in Star Trek Voyager Meld with a twist. In one of Star Trek Voyager Season 2's best episodes, Meld, Tuvok can be seen choking Neelix Ethan Phillips to death. Although it's revealed later that Tuvok was simply running a holodeck program and that Neelix is nothing more than a photonic projection, the fact remains that Tuvok failed to control himself under the Talaxians' barrage of frivolous comments. Seeing Tuvok kill Neelix, even as a hologram, is still a moment that sticks in my mind, and I was only partially relieved when Tuvok ended the program, revealing the real Neelix wasn't even there. The real Neelix wants nothing more than to break down the wall between them, and Meld proves just what he was up against in this regard. One of the most telling elements of Tuvok's holographic murder scene is just why he chose to simulate Neelix. Russ's character was testing himself to see if he could maintain his composure in the face of what he interpreted as an incredibly irritating scenario. Selecting Neelix as the character to fit that description confirms that Tuvok found it very difficult to be in Neelix's presence, and thought the talkative Talaxian was infuriating. Inversely, the real Neelix wants nothing more than to break down the wall between them, and Meld proves just what he was up against in this regard. The ever-changing dynamic between Tuvok and Neelix is one of my favorite Star Trek Voyager mini-arcs. Pretty much immediately after they meet, Neelix starts trying to find ways to connect with Tuvok, as he finds the Vulcan's immovable demeanor oddly compelling. The Talaxian gradually makes progress in making Tuvok his friend rather than just a colleague, but it pretty much takes 7 straight seasons of Neelix chipping away at Tuvok's armor. In Meld, the pair have only known each other for roughly a year. Tuvok has always been one of my favorite characters on Star Trek Voyager. There's something profoundly reassuring about his Vulcan calm, his mastery of logic, and his steadfast loyalty to Captain Janeway. But there was one episode that almost shattered my image of him, and for a moment, I was truly terrified. Watching it unfold felt like witnessing a trusted friend lose themselves. The worst part was that for several agonizing scenes, I wasn't sure he would come back from it. Luckily, Voyager didn't let him or the audience down. The episode in question is Season 5's Riddles. On paper, it sounds relatively simple. Tuvok is attacked by an invisible alien, and the neural trauma he suffers causes him to lose the very essence of his Vulcan discipline, his control over emotions, his logic-based thinking, and even his memories of how to function as the Tuvok we knew. But watching it play out hit me like a photon torpedo to the chest. When Tuvok first wakes up after the attack, it's clear something is wrong. Gone is the straight-backed, precise man who speaks in cool, clipped tones. Instead, we see a vulnerable, confused figure, unsure of his identity and painfully childlike in his curiosity. The way he tilts his head, the softness in his eyes, it's Tuvok, but not the Tuvok we know. And I couldn't handle it. There's a very specific moment that made my stomach drop. Neelix, of all people, becomes Tuvok's caretaker and emotional anchor. Their relationship had always been strained. Neelix's bouncy optimism often clashed with Tuvok's disciplined detachment. But here, Neelix takes on the role of guardian with surprising gentleness. Watching him teach Tuvok how to enjoy simple things like music and dessert was touching, but also heart-wrenching. I kept asking myself, is this permanent? Is Tuvok gone for good? The scene that truly terrified me was the one where Tuvok, now stripped of logic, experiences fear. Real, unfiltered fear. He cries. Tuvok cries. That broke something in me. Because when a Vulcan cries, you know something is deeply, irreparably wrong. I didn't know if Voyager's writers were pulling a fast one, using the attack as a convenient excuse to write Tuvok out of his own character arc, or if this was just a temporary deviation. Tim Russ, who portrayed Tuvok, deserves immense credit for how he handled these scenes. He managed to imbue this changed version of Tuvok with fragility without making it feel like parody. You could feel the absence of the Vulcan mind at work, but you could also see glimmers of the man still inside. His interactions with Neelix in particular felt like a mirror version of their old dynamic, Neelix guiding Tuvok instead of the other way around. What made the episode so terrifying was how it presented this transformation as irreversible. The Doctor couldn't promise a full recovery. Janeway, ever the realist, began preparing for a future where Tuvok might never be himself again. And Neelix, he actually began to enjoy the company of this emotionally expressive Tuvok. That scared me even more. Were we about to see everyone just accept that Tuvok was gone? Thankfully, Voyager doesn't do that. In the episode's final act, a solution begins to emerge, but not without emotional cost. As the Doctor restores Tuvok's neurological functions, Neelix is forced to say goodbye to the version of Tuvok he had finally grown close to. There's a beautiful scene where Neelix plays a riddle game one last time, hoping that some remnant of their bond might survive. It's subtle, bittersweet, and surprisingly mature for a show that sometimes leaned on technobabble to solve every problem. The final seconds of the episode left me with both relief and a lump in my throat. Tuvok, now restored, finishes a riddle that Neelix began. No fanfare. No dramatic music swell. Just a quiet exchange that proves the connection they formed wasn't entirely erased. It felt like Voyager whispering to its audience, "It's okay. He's still in there." Looking back, Riddles was never really about whether Tuvok would regain his faculties. It was about the fear of change, especially the kind of change that makes someone unrecognizable. For many fans, Tuvok represents consistency. The idea that no matter how chaotic things got in the Delta Quadrant, there was always one officer whose mind was unshakable. To see that stability cracked, even temporarily, shook my faith in the ship's emotional foundation. What I appreciate more now, though, is how Voyager used that fear to tell a deeply compassionate story. The episode could have easily devolved into melodrama or cheap sentiment, but instead it delivered an emotionally intelligent narrative about friendship, trauma, and recovery. It forced characters and viewers to confront the possibility that change doesn't always mean loss. Sometimes it means discovery. I was terrified by that scene where Tuvok cries. I won't pretend otherwise. It's the kind of vulnerability that sticks with you. But I'm also grateful for it. Because in showing us what it means to lose everything that defines you and still come back, the episode reminded me that even the most logical among us are still human or Vulcan at heart.